He said kickers are unique individuals, but they are certainly not NFL players.
And here's the thing that I have to say about this.
Mm-hmm.
If I've learned anything from social media,
yes,
it's truly that the most irrelevant people always say the most absurd stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I had no idea Brian Billick was still alive, right? None of us did. None of us had a clue he was even alive.
Right.
But then his name starts popping up in my mentions, and he says this, and I'm like, why is this guy even talking? And I understand he was once a football coach, so he's got a Super Bowl ring, which is awesome, good for him.
Yep.
But then I start thinking, like, deeper. I start thinking about the whole comment. And I happened to be on a team with Matt Stover, who was his kicker for a long time.
Yeah.
And when I met Matt Stover, who's a good person, but I go, he's the reason why the kickers have a bad rep, right? That was my rookie year. I met Matt Stover. He was in like his 20th year. He's kind of a quirky individual, which I go, this is probably why kickers have a bad rep. But you can't paint a broad brush because of one person, And I know that. I never judge anybody, coaches, just because Brian Billick said something of an ass.
Yeah.
I'm not going to judge every coach,
Right.
But then you start thinking deeper, like, how do you describe a football player then, right? Is it only a guy who tackles people or gets hit on every single play? Because then a quarterback wouldn't be a football player, which would be completely false, right? Is it only a guy who catches the ball or throws the ball
or blocks?
Or blocks and the entire defense isn't? Is it only guys that show up in stat sheets? Because nose tackles usually just have to grab offensive linemen and never show up in stat sheets, but they're probably the toughest football players out there. So if you think, is a football player a combination of things, right? It's a guy who throws the ball. It's a guy who runs the ball. It's a guy who catches the ball. It's a guy who tackles somebody. It's a guy who blocks somebody. And out of those 5 things, I know from personal experience, one guy who's done damn near all of them on a football field, right? Myself included. But then if you think, is Adam Vinatieri not a football player? Because I watched a video of him last week tackling Herschel Walker when 10 other football players couldn't tackle him on the same play.
Right.
So is Adam Vinatieri not a football player? And then this past weekend, I watched Johnny Hecker, the quarterback or the punter for the St. Louis Rams, roll right, go to his third read, throw the fake punt to a guy, which Trent Dilfer, who was Brian Billick's quarterback, has never done in his entire life.
That's true.
So once you start getting through all these things, you just realize that people who are irrelevant are going to say absurd things to kind of find some relevancy. And this was that situation.
I'm kind of curious as to how many victories under Billick's, I guess, career were won by an extra point or a field goal.
Well, that's an interesting
question.
Because he tweeted that, I think they're very important to the outcome of the game. They're just not football players. And I don't know if that's how he talks. I just assume somebody of his idiocy sounds
That's incredibly accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just, he just kind of said it, and then he decided that he stepped in it. And we're the only sport, really, that bashes our own.
Yeah.
Kickers and punters have been attacked since before I got in the NFL. They'll be attacked after I leave the NFL. But if you have a brain and a football IQ, you really understand that if you step on the field, there's a chance to get hurt. There's a chance to hit somebody. There's a chance to throw somebody. Maybe my chances aren't as high as other people.
Right.
But I'm getting paid by the National Football League to play football. I think that's enough to be a football player. So, Brian Billick, here's a toast to
Eat
you
me.
going straight to hell.
There we go.
Cheers.
I think we summarized that.
I thought about that in the shower this morning.
Yeah. Well
Although
done. Yes.
You did make a very good point that we'd all forgotten he was alive. So by saying this,
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's
we're all
back in the
talking
back
about
Yeah,
in the
relevancy.
discussion.
It's just like social media. The most irrelevant people say the most absurd things
Get some traction.
in a hope to get some relevancy. And
Yeah.
Brian Billick can enjoy his Super Bowl ring and take shots at whoever. I mean, I guess he
Why
did
don't you
well.
challenge him to some kind of charity field goal competition?
I would challenge him in everything.
Anything.
I would beat him in everything. And
You
it's
got
just,
better hair. I'm
Well,
looking
he's
at
about 100. How old
look at
is
a
he?
picture of him.
Hey, listen, I'm not scared to take down a 100-year-old man if he's going to go after what I do for a living. You know what I mean? I'll do
He
it.
started it.
He sure did.
That's his problem, not mine. But Brian Billick has the same thought as a lot of old school people, which is that kickers and punters should just kick, shut up. You're not really a football player, which is cool. But if you have any intelligence, any football IQ at all, as opposed to just resting on your defense to win you a Super Bowl, you understand that it's a very field position and points are a big deal.
And if I remember correctly, the Colts did beat Billick with five field goals.
Yeah, Adam Vinatieri.
And sent them on to a Super Bowl, did it not?
Yeah, freaking Adam. That guy that tackled Herschel freaking Walker.
Yeah.
So,
Well
yeah,
said.
you can go to hell.
Well said.
Brian Billick, that's what I think of you.
Okay. Can't tweet that whole speech.